that America is going to open right back up here at Easter. Don't hold your breath. That's what I'm hearing. But nevertheless, we still have plenty of opportunity to be quarantined at home, to add more people to the discussion as we come along. And tonight I've got kind of a special treat for everybody. One thing that folks may have noticed on my Facebook page is I asked everybody to go ahead and just post if you're not an essential worker, and I am not essential. It's been made abundantly clear to me on several occasions, not just with my current job, but with many of the jobs that I've had before, that I'm not essential at all. So anyway, this reinforcement is kind of hard to take, but I have this little setup that I put on the Facebook pictures on a comment on a post, and I asked people to do that as well. I've got to figure out how to load those up so I can show those to everybody, maybe tomorrow night, to show folks that we've got. That we've got everybody's working from home, and there's some really nice setups, and then there's some setups that are extremely concerning. As we get started, I know everybody's looking forward to our guest, and he's a guy who I happen to work with, and that I knew sort of a little bit because I would see him sometimes. Like on television and stuff. And anyway, he and I started the same day at our place of business at the library and museum. And people have asked me before. I'll get to that actually. But let me tell you what I've got though. First is so we got a couple of people make comments last night, and I did a lot of negotiation with a good friend of mine who many of you know. Who has been would be considered. I don't know if he considers it this way, but he's my best friend and the guy that I always look to when I need some help. He's bailed me out, and he still owes me money, but he's bailed me out of a lot of jams. So I want to just bring him in here into the stream. Let's see if he's coming. Hey, everybody, it's Jeremy Flynn. Tell us in comments if you like to see Jeremy's furry face. Hi, bud.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I don't know if anybody else can hear you, but that doesn't matter. Nobody watches this anyway.
Well, I've navigated my whole day on phone calls and conference calls, but I actually do video for you.
Oh, that's nice of you. How do you so how is how's your are you essential? How's your setup there?
My phone sure indicates that I'm essential, but I'm working remotely from home.
Good. Well, so everybody may or may not know Jeremy had a baby. Well, you did not. Your wife did, correct?
That was right. Yep.
So tell everybody about your baby. What does he do?
He doesn't sleep. He eats a lot, and whatever comes in comes out, and you never know where or how it's going to come out.
Do you find that if you squeeze him, you kind of get, or does it?
It's mostly when I shake him.
Yeah. Good.
No, squeezing is fine. He seems to like that. It's the shaking that really bothers him.
Yeah, good. And so you guys are. So has he ever been quarantined before?
Well, basically since he got home.
Okay.
Yeah, he got a head start on this.
Has he met anybody yet, or have you just kept him away from human beings?
Yeah, no, there's been like 3 people that have met him, and now there's a queue lined up waiting for the quarantine to be over.
First questions first, which is important. I've got my Pure Leaf, and I'm drinking it out of a Cubs cup for you and for Joe. And what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I've got some Yingling.
Oh yeah, everybody seems to like that.
Yeah, and then when I run out of that, I've got to.
Oh, good. Jeremy's an old Jameson friend of mine.
I didn't think that was appropriate for video.
No. Oh no, it doesn't bother me. It may not be appropriate for you. If I was still drinking, I'd have the whole bottle. Yeah, you know. All right, let's do this. Let's bring our good friend Joe Crain in. So, Jeremy, I'm going to just hide you for just this as well. And if I, if I delete you or whatever, you need to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. I thought, geez, golly, I would like to ask Joe Crain to come on. And everybody says, you got to get Joe Crain. You got to get Joe Crain. And the questions when I first started day one at the Library and Museum, Joe started the same day. He didn't know me from Adam. And I'm sure that he was like, oh my God, that guy gets a window in his office, and thought like, who the hell is this clown? And, but, everybody says it was like, nobody cared about how's your job going? Nobody ever cares about that. Most people, they would ask you, they'd never ask me. The question I got was, what's Joe Crain like? And the only way that I can explain Joe Crain I mean it with all sincerity. This whole wheat, 12 grain, stone grain, whatever, stone ground bread. This guy is like the nicest, most decent, happiest, jovial, most enthusiastic guy that I know. And if he's not, he's been lying to us. So we have been testing him now since July to see what it is that's going to make Joe Crain blow up. But he's been a real asset to where we work, and at the same time, a real delight to work with. So I'm going to bring him in right now from his basement bunker. And he's about ready to come on here. So, hi, Joe Crain.
I don't care. I don't care if you just think this is some little Facebook Live thing with some guy you've never heard of. I treat this just like if we're going live on the network. I expect a little better lighting in here from the crew. Come on.
Hey, Joe, we're live right now, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh,
hi. Hey, everybody.
How are you, man?
Just trying to get just having to ride herd on this crew. I swear to God, I bring these people into my home during this situation, and I've provided plenty of toilet paper, and they can't get the lighting right. I mean,
Joe, you look better.
No, I know. I'm kidding. There is just me, myself, and I.
So you're in your basement bunker. I know you said you wear the hoodie because
it gets a little chilly down here in the basement because we're in that transition time where the furnace doesn't kick on. In December and January, February, when it's cold, the basement office is just absolutely comfortable. But now with we've got that economy savings furnace system, so it's a little chilly down here. But
and so Joe, what's let's see, you're an old weatherman, not an old, you're a young man, Joe. We all know this, but you're a former weatherman. So what's happening to the weather? When am I going to see some sunshine? I mean, it's bad enough that
Tomorrow, you're going to enjoy a nice afternoon tomorrow. We're talking 50s and sunshine tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow looks to be a good day, and then later in the week, temperatures will start to warm up, but we'll also see some more rain chances. But I can tell you, looking beyond this week, next week into early April, that extended outlook looks like more than likely warmer than average temperatures for late March, early April, and drier than normal precipitation chances. So a warm and mild and dry period coming our way.
Okay, let me ask you this, Joe, because you do the what's your full title? It's public programs and community. What's the full title?
Well, I think I've got a couple of different titles. I think there's the title that is kind of my working title that makes it easy to explain what I do: Director of Public Programs and Community Engagement. But on the little flow chart, it's something completely different. It's like SRS, blah blah blah.
Oh, that's
sales and all that stuff.
So no, that's the state stuff, and you fulfill that. But here's the thing: you always are, and I mean, not every day. Like, so I don't want to overblow it. Like every day, Joe's giving us like weather updates, but you are frequently. You're like you will send stuff. And it's kind of helpful. So you'll send stuff to me or Melissa or Dave or one of the engineers, and you say, "Hey,"
team and especially the building and maintenance crew, because and I was very impressed when I came on board. They follow the weather intently because they have to be concerned about the the trees in the park with the roofing and all the things that could be impacted by weather that could eventually impact security and preservation of the artifacts in the collection in the museum and the library. So, if I can add a little extra, because even though I don't do that anymore as a career per se, doing something completely, totally different than anything I've ever done in my entire adult life.
You're pretty good at it, but go on.
Thank you. But I still keep up with the weather because it's hard not to, and it's because inevitably once a day somebody will come up to me and ask me what the weather's doing. And a couple of times back in the summer when I kind of got away from it for a little bit, people were just kind of shocked that I didn't know what the weather was going to be, and they were kind of disappointed. So I figured, well, you need to know what the weather is, so if I can tell somebody what it's going to be.
So what do you follow? I mean, don't give away all your secrets, but do you have a do you have like an app that you follow, or do you have all these models and stuff that you?
I look at a lot of different models depending on the time of the year. The GFS model, which is the global forecast model. The North American model, which is if you want to find, that's where you kind of see the outlier a lot of times, especially with snow. And the same with the European model. I always get really ticked off when I see some armchair weather people that aren't in the profession in a paid position. They just have a Facebook page, and 10 days before something happens, they post, "Look at the European model. We're going to get 18 inches of snow." No. And then, of course, people spread that all over the internet, and then they watch the forecast and say, "Well, Joe, why aren't you talking about the 18 inches of snow coming our way in 10 days?" And I said, well, it's hard enough to predict snow 10 hours away from the event, let alone 10 days. So,
right.
Models are just that. They provide you guidance. And if you know anything about winter weather that far out, forget about it.
Yeah, well, it's always been my I've never had good luck with European models, to be honest with you. Let's bring Jeremy in.
That's the one thing I miss every day of not being at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library Museum. Those nuggets like that.
All right, we're going to bring Jeremy in, and then I'm going to, let's see, I got to get and then we had this, okay, now we're featuring Joe. So Jeremy and I get to ask Joe questions, but Joe, then you can respond with questions as well. And what this does is this provides us with the opportunity to I can watch the comments here and maybe post a comment up here. Here's one that's, is this guy not the best ever?
John Patterson, a salute.
No, look at the screen. Lance, do you see that? Do you see Lance is posted up there? I don't know how Joe's screen works. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Let me slow down. I've got a whole bunch of, I don't see Lance's.
Well, I put it up
from earlier about something. This is going to be epic.
Oh yeah, no, he says hello, coworkers, and then
there I see it. Yeah.
Then Eric says Team ALPLM, and then Kathy Dre. You know Kathy, right?
Yep.
Kathy says, great to see Joe Crain.
Jamie Stout, my pal, is watching.
Where's that at? I'm looking for that.
Right at the very bottom. And I see a former team member at my former place of employment is watching as well. I won't reveal her true identity.
That's fair. That's fair.
Former Saluki, not former Saluki, fellow Saluki, John Patterson, watching as well.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Jeremy and I used to work with John Patterson, or rather, we were employed at the same place.
Okay.
Jeremy, I actually think I cut your mic off. I didn't mean to do that. That was a terrible thing for me to do.
Twice now you've done that, Toby.
I know.
It's for the best.
Jeremy, you get the first question for Joe. What?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I know we're coming up on a year, and I know that folks really want to hear it directly from you, Joe. So can you tell us a little bit about what it's like working behind the scenes at the museum and working with Toby?
I don't know that Joe can hear you again, can he?
I cannot hear you.
Man.
Yet, so
come back, Jeremy. Come back to us one more time. All right. I'm going to take you out again. You come back.
It works so well in the rehearsal.
I know, and I bet you people can hear, but for some reason, Joe, you can't. So I'm going to bring him in. Here was his question. No. He really had to set up because I think he was hinting at. He said it's been like a year, but it hasn't been a year. He wanted to know what it was like to work with me at the library and museum.
Well, it's a treat every day because Toby always brings. He brings his A game every day.
Oh,
he's a. I mean, you're paying me to say these things about you, Toby. I want to make sure I do my part. So what can I say?
But, who's getting paid?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but, now Joe can hear you. It's not pay, Joe. It's simple. You said you and Mrs. Crain needed toilet paper. I said I'll make you a trade. Get on this damn thing tonight, and you can get some toilet paper.
So it works out well, Jeremy. Yeah. No, I tell you what's fun about Toby. He really is a good guy at bringing people together. Solving problems. He has a reputation for that, and I've seen that firsthand. And it's always fun with the meeting because sometimes Toby will kind of get the meeting a little off track, and he's frustrated me a couple of times where I'm trying to move a meeting along, and he walks in after we've been going for 40 minutes and we've got a lot of stuff done. He walks in and sits down, and within 2 minutes, the train has come off the rails. And I'm the conductor trying to pull it back on the tracks and trying to get him to focus.
That is a tough
trying
gig.
To bring things around, trying to keep mayhem from breaking out and mutiny and people wanting to throw up their hands and quit and all of that. And eventually we come down to it. But after all that happens, at some point, Toby will sit there and see if this is true, Jeremy, from a meeting that you've probably been in with Toby many times. So, long pause, and then he brilliantly summarizes everything that happened in the meeting, including the stuff he wasn't even there for, which I don't know how he knew that. But he summarizes it beautifully, and we have an action plan, and the meeting's over.
Well, that's very kind, but Jeremy, I must tell you that Joe spent much of his career as a paid liar. He was a weatherman.
Whoa!
Joe, how about this? Jeremy.
That's another thing I'm used to with Toby every day. At some point in the day, you're going to get zinged by and really hit on in that way by Toby.
Back in the day, Toby used to hit on me all the time.
Well, not in that way.
Oh.
But then again, I don't know, because Toby never seems to take when they always have the meeting about, everybody's complied with the latest online training from the state that's required, except, Toby, you need to still take that. So.
Oh, that's true. So everybody else needs to follow the rules except for me. Joe, here's the thing you may not know. So Jeremy's from Redbud originally. Yeah. Joe, tell us where you're from originally.
The county seat of Alexander County.
What is it, Jeremy?
Cairo.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. And so Joe,
way down south.
So Joe,
and it's not Cairo like Egypt.
No,
it's not Cairo like the syrup. It's Cairo.
My mother grew up in Metropolis.
Yeah, home of Superman.
Absolutely.
The Joe, so you ended up, you come from a family of funeral directors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family, yeah, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you, you land at Southern Illinois University,
yep,
Carbondale, studied broadcasting, right? Comms,
right.
Or what was it?
It was back then, a little different than it is now. My major was radio television with a specialization in broadcast sales and marketing and a minor in journalism.
Okay. And so you leave there, while you're in school, you're doing local radio?
Yep. CIL-FM there in Carbondale all 4 years. The big top 40 powerhouse.
Then where do you go after that?
My senior year in college was interesting. I was taking both semesters about 14, 16 hours, all upper level classes, obviously. I was working full time at CILFM in Carbondale, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I was going up to St. Louis and doing 3 shifts a weekend for the old KHTR FM 103, which was the top 40 station in St. Louis. Jeremy probably listened to
Yeah,
that back in the day.
he probably knows that
Absolutely.
because yeah.
And I worked there for about a year doing that through college. And then after I graduated, and then about 7 months after I graduated from SIU, I was working there and working freelance at a couple of stations around Southeast Missouri and Southern Illinois after I left CIL, and was working a lot up in St. Louis. And then we changed from top 40 to oldies. Did that for a little bit, and it was one day Tim Dorsey, who was the general manager and was part of the group that then bought 550 in St. Louis as one of the radio stations there, came into the studio one day while I was on there, and he goes, "Joe," he said, "you're sounding pretty good considering this music. You weren't even born when all this music was made." And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a hint to go do something else. So I bounced around, worked with the company for several years in radio between Duluth, Minnesota, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Omaha, Nebraska. Then
How long
eventually,
were you out? How long were you out there?
from 89 through 94, working in those markets with the same company. Though briefly, I left the company and worked for another group in Sioux City, Iowa, which was Radio Hell. Just a whacked out guy that owned the station, thought he was God's gift to radio,
In
and
Sioux
would let
City.
you know it in Sioux City, Iowa.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the company I was with in Duluth and Green Bay, and then worked for them in Lincoln and Omaha, and eventually made my way back to Illinois in Peoria for a couple of years, and then ended up in Springfield in '96, and ended up staying. And one thing led to another from transitioning to radio to TV, and here we are. Didn't expect to be in Springfield at all. In fact, I was in Peoria. The station changed formats, and most of us lost our job, or several people were demoted and whatnot. So I was out of work, and some friends of mine that I'd worked with up in Green Bay and Duluth were in Springfield, and they heard I was on the beach, as they say in radio, and I came down here. What was supposed to be just a part-time job for about a month or so, filling in for some summer vacation work, ended up being a full-time gig that was a nice deal for about 8 years, and then made the transition to TV, and then here we are.
So that's super cool. And so how do you go from like, well, family of funeral directors? What is the term there? Are they undertakers? Is that what they are? Is that
Funeral director?
funeral directors? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Undertakers. That's someone.
That's
from
a wrestler.
1890.
Oh.
How do you go from that?
Yeah,
like
a wrestler.
Did besides dead bodies not, interesting you? Why broadcasting? Who was it that you saw? What was it that you experienced that you were like, oh, I love this?
I think it was back when I was a little kid. My dad would drive me to school, and school started like at 8:10 or 8:15 or something, and he would drive me to school, give me a ride to school, and go for coffee in a town where all the business guys get together and have coffee before the workday starts. And on his way to dropping me off at school, he'd always have one of the St. Louis radio stations on, like KMOX back in the day with Jack Carney and Jack Buck and those guys in the morning, or KSD or KXOK, which back in the 70s were like the top 40 stations, or sometimes he'd listen to the local stations. And I just, 8, 9 years old, thought, boy, those guys sound like they're
Jeremy.
Well, it wasn't long, because I ended up starting not at that station but another station nearby when I was only 14. So
no kidding.
Yeah, for the first year, a little more than a year that I worked in radio, my mom had to drive me to work every Saturday and Sunday afternoon.
I'll be darned. Well, yeah. I know what it was like to work. I worked at an arcade when I was like 8 years old, but Jeremy doesn't because his dad was a judge. Jeremy, do you have a question for Joe?
Well, before a question, I did see if I saw this right, that birthday boy Dan Katowski is actually watching.
No.
For his birthday, he is watching this. So I don't know what his family did to him today.
Wow.
Yeah, I
You
know.
Dan
I'm sorry.
Katowski is he's a
Former senator.
former state senator. That's right. Yeah, and that's what he's doing to fill his time up. My God.
I'm really
Okay, so Joe, here's the thing. Here's what I was struck with to a certain extent, which is that so from broadcasting, obviously a lot of transition frequently, right? So
Yes.
frequently, and it's just the nature of the beast, the nature of the business. In fact, I remember when the early sort of weeks that we were working together. I think it was you wouldn't eat I don't know, do you eat lunch anymore? You didn't eat lunch or something? Your
No.
schedule was so goofy that you were
Yeah.
having a very difficult time adjusting your own body to
And feel free to tell the story that I would take some naps, not on the job, but on my break time when the weather was still nice. I would
Joe
go
spent
across to the park and find a bench in the shade.
Yeah, no, I mean Joe would go to his lunch hour and he'd sit there by like a Lincoln statue and just kind of take a little nap,
I'd nod
and
off. Sometimes I'd lean into Lincoln. It was comforting. That the 16th president was. I felt comfortable snuggling with Abe. So because apparently he did. It was not uncommon on the circuit back then. The lawyers had be bunked up in a small little bed and breakfast and would So.
Well, it could be that might be right. But how's your clock now?
Better.
Do you
I still wake up occasionally, like at 2:30 in the morning, and when I wake up at that time, I still, after doing it, and I'll have that of, oh my God, I've overslept, and I realize, oh wait, I don't have to get up and do that anymore.
Oh yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's kind of like the dream that radio people have. That you have this dream that you're walking into the studio and you're getting ready to go on the air, and you walk in and nothing works. You can't get anything to play, the records or the tapes, and you just freak out. So
absolutely. So what I was getting at with the transitions and all that. So this, Joe, now is a time of uncertainty, right? So everybody is just trying to. I mean, this whole situation is just bizarre, and we've all been, we've all been thrown into this sort of new way of temporary doing whatever we're supposed to do. No matter I don't mean whatever we're supposed to do. Like, I don't know. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I tell everybody that every day. I know what I'm doing. But there's a lot of anxiety. And I do say, I'm sort of, it's tongue in cheek, in fact, I got you for your desk, what's that desk plate say? Your
enthusiasm is scaring everyone.
Right. So I got that for you, and you display it there. You don't have to. You shouldn't feel obligated to, but it's pretty.
I find it humorous.
But what is you seem to have a pretty upbeat attitude most of the time. A lot of stuff doesn't appear to worry you too much. And we've worked together long enough. It's not that you're just dumb, So what is it? What's your philosophy here?
So you have to have a cynical view on life to have a high IQ or smart outlook on life. Is what you're saying.
I don't know.
I'm just kind of reading in that.
I just know.
Jeremy, did you get that from what he was kind of?
Well, no. To build on that, Joe. I mean, walk us through what it's like to be like, hey, I'm working in St. Louis. I'm working in Southeast Missouri. I get to go to Sioux City, Iowa now.
But you made the comment before that you're always so upbeat. And here's the thing: there was a time back in the day when I was at different radio stations, I was usually the operations manager, the program director. I wasn't the station general manager or the station owner, but I pretty much ran all the day-to-day stuff. What you heard on the air was my responsibility, from the morning show to the promotions and the contest, and caller 10 wins for concert tickets and all that jazz. Um, and I used to be very stressed out because it was a very demanding job. Broadcasting is a very demanding